Well, hello and welcome to the 2020 EMS Leadership Summit, our daily debrief. This is day number 4 of 5. My name is Robbie McHugh. I am here with my co-host, Lisa Druzzi.
Hi, everybody. It's nice to be back.
And we are taking your questions, your biggest challenges, what your biggest takeaways from today's lineup. Today on day number 4, we had Rishita Jones, we had Steve Chandler, Leon Baranowski and Richard Armour, Rachael Waldinger, Justin Thomas, and Richard Lee. And Richard is in the green room with us, and we'll bring him on in just a few moments. So we are excited to be here. If the audio sounds okay in the comments, if you could just type in that it sounds okay and where you're joining in from around the world. We have over 3,300 people registered from 26 countries. So it's always great to hear folks that are on the live and the daily debriefs, where about you are joining in from. And we just want to go give you a quick overview of our virtual exhibitor hall. You can find a virtual exhibitor hall at emsleadershipsummit.com/exhibit. And you can interact with it. You can click and go to our sponsored booths, especially Zoll. Click on Zoll and you'll be able to see, actually it appeared in a different window. So you'll be able to see and interact with each booth. You can sign up for tomorrow's Lunch and Learn, where we're going to be issuing a $15 Grubhub meal voucher to the first 100 people who register, and space is getting pretty limited, and that show up for tomorrow's X Advanced Series Monitor Clinical Overview. So we're excited to have the clinical team talk about that. I want to thank our other sponsors at Binderlift for their incredible device that helps people, that helps providers lift patients safely off the ground using proper body mechanics with this neat looking device. And also IAMed with their clinical courses, online courses to help folks become flight paramedics and critical care paramedic certification, as well as their point of care ultrasound class that just released. There's a special coupon code and link in there for a $79 POCUS point of care ultrasound course that they just released, as well as the Emergency Responder Safety Institute, who has an entire booth and set of resources for EMS leaders on how to help your providers operate safely at roadway incidents, as well as our 5-day challenge that you could still join, Tai Chi with Suze, who's teaching some stress techniques. You can join at any point over the next, between now and tomorrow, and still get into the 5-day stress less challenge.
And Citify also is one of our exhibitors this time, and they have some really interesting stuff in their vendor booth as well. So be sure to go there, and you can get a live demo every day. Holly, right, is doing a live demo, and they are really looking to solve the communication problems that we often face when we have silos in our organizations, or people are on their rig, and they're not necessarily interacting with other folks or coming in. So some really cool stuff that they're up to. So I would definitely take a look at that.
And MediCredits, who is underwriting our CME credits or CAPC approved CME credits, they have a great app that you can use to iOS or Android, and you can look at clinical trainings, and they're also helping issue our CAPC approved CME credits. So again, if you purchased an all access pass, you can could still purchase an all access pass before the price goes up at the end of the conference. emsleadershipsummit.com/AAP for your CME credits and lifetime access to all those sessions.
Well, we have people joining from all over tonight. We have, hello, Brenda, welcome, and Misty, and Duncan is here from Australia. Hello, Duncan, one of our presenters. Brenda is joining us from Ireland, and Misty from West Texas. And we have Kenya represented, and Detroit-ish. Hi, Dwight, from Detroit-ish. And I'm so sorry I can't say your name correctly. A Georgism, Amalo. I know you've been with us every single day, and we really appreciate you being with us. So you've had some awesome questions, and it's been great to have you with us. So much exciting happened today in our lineup. As you mentioned, our speakers. some really cool, ideas being introduced, and I'm really excited to hear if people watch today what you got out of it, or any questions that you might have.
And I did the interview with Rachael Waldinger, and I know Rachael, she was in Switzerland and wasn't able to be on the call with us today, but she talked about this idea of extra dependent teams, which I thought was an interesting look at our industry and what we do. They're not, we have these very siloed, roving teams that are very independent, and they use the word extra dependent, but they're very just independent teams that have to just rely maybe on dyads or on each other, or to operate alone. They don't really rely on the other crews as much to do that call, to do that exact job. Right. So she had some interesting techniques and perspectives of how do you help facilitate communication with those teams, and help with the siloed communication, folks that aren't. Well, she also brought up that when those people who are very independent, and she says extra dependent, get promoted into a leadership role, they're fish out of water sometimes, because now they're joining maybe a leadership team where people are more dependent on running the organization and have to cross communicate with each other. So I thought that was a really interesting take on what we do. When I was doing some research for my master's degree, we were trying to find industries similar to EMS, and one of the only ones we could find was the truck driving industry when you looked at employee turnover, because there you have people that are spread out across maybe a country, and how do you facilitate communication and stay connected with people who are very independent and don't have to be physically in the same space. So
yeah, it's a whole nother way of thinking about a team. Usually people think of team in one way, and her take on it really expands like what you might even consider a team to be. So it was really enlightening. We have someone from Pennsylvania and another person from Philadelphia, which is both in the same state. Welcome.
Yeah. With those. No training sets these people up to fail, for sure. It's been a reoccurring theme that, and the point Chris Cebulero made on our first night. Why do we wait until somebody's promoted to a position before we consider even giving them any type of leadership development and training?
And even then, that was why you and I started the EMS Leadership Academy to begin with, was the gaping hole in the leadership development space. It's like, you're an EMT or a paramedic, go run an organization.
Yeah, good luck.
What? Wait, what? So that's what got us going with creating the academy. And now to be able to provide this summit free, over a 5-day period, so people can really access experts that they wouldn't have access to under normal circumstances. Even if you're able to afford, if your organizations are able to afford to send you to a conference, or able to you're able to do that, to travel, all that kind of stuff. We're talking pre-COVID. Still, you're not going to necessarily be able to get to every one of the sessions, right? So this way, really giving people 24 hours with every single video for free. And then if you're interested in the all access pass, you have lifetime access. So we really wanted to expand the reach of leadership training. And there's quite a variety of speakers and expertise on this particular, in this year, in 2020. I'm so excited. 8 different countries represented by our presenters. As you mentioned, we have participants from 26 countries, but we have speakers and presenters from 8 different countries. So it's really exciting.
Great. Well, I guess let's bring in one of our speakers from today, Richard Lee, joining us from the UK. Richard, thanks again for being here.
Hi, Richard.
Hi, everyone. Good evening from the UK.
So great of you to join us, and thank you again for being one of our speakers. Your presentation was quite interesting in terms of, last night I mentioned when we were foreshadowing today that people think that organizational change has to take a long time, and it can, but you guys really stepped up and did a whole transformation in a relatively short period of time, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, 5 days, within the first 5 days of our COVID operation, we reorganised our ambulance crews into running from 32 hubs across the country, and behind that, probably the ambulances and the ambulance crew was the easiest part of that because they're used to moving around. But our logistics teams and our infrastructure teams had to get a lot of work done really quickly to have a safe environment. Ambulance services in the UK are subject to registration by an organisation called the Care Quality Commission that grades all National Health Service and independent healthcare organisations. So there's no real sort of passes for we did it quickly, so it was okay. You have to work to a regulated standard. So across the organisation, yeah, fantastic effort. I was once taught by somebody that I used to work for. He said, "Never waste a crisis." And these things are an opportunity sometimes to rally the troops a bit and to get people to maybe unite around a purpose that maybe in another time frame would have taken a little while to get people to sign up to. But I think part of it is the work we're doing now. We're ready for second wave now, and in between first wave and second wave, some of the stuff's been firmed up a bit, and some of the stuff's been improved and adapted, and that's all come from the shop floor. That's all our people, our people's ideas, and making sure that where there's an even better way of doing things, we can take that on board.
Well, Richard, maybe you could give us just a quick overview. I know in your presentation you talked about St. John Ambulance and how old of an organization it really dates back to. I think it's a fascinating topic that many people may not be aware of.
Well, so the organisation of today comes from the 1500s. So in the 1500s, the Knights of St. John, the Hospitaller Knights, went off to the Crusades. And they were the Hospitaller Knights. They took care of the sick and the injured, and built hospitals wherever the Crusades were. And then if you fast forward to Victorian Britain, so sort of the mid 1800s, heavy industry, steelworking, railways, coal mines, no healthcare, and so St. John Ambulance had, by that point, there weren't any Crusades anymore, so the hospitallers had repurposed themselves as first aid providers in the workplace. So providing ambulance squads at coal mines and railways and steelworks and other heavy industry, looking after the many casualties that befell people in Victorian Britain. And then if you wind forward to the sort of 1960s, a lot of ambulance services were provided by St. John. And then in 1974, the National Health Service, which is the free at the point of need universal healthcare system in the UK, took over responsibility for running ambulance services in 1974. And so there was a transition then from St. John-led services to NHS-led services. And so since the sort of late 1970s to the present day, really, our role now is we provide medical cover events, volunteer-led medical cover events across the UK. So pop concerts, sporting events, and we also provide ambulance services under direct contract to the National Health Service, both ambulance services and some hospitals we provide ambulance cover for. And since March, we've been providing volunteer-led ambulance support to the NHS on a scale never seen before, the biggest mobilisation of St. John in living memory. So these figures were from a couple of weeks ago, but well over 205,000 hours now of support by our volunteers right across the nation in ambulances, working in local hospital emergency departments, providing homeless services, nighttime economy services, and as you can see at the bottom, as sport in the UK has come back with behind closed doors, we continue to provide medical support there. So about 10 to 15,000 people volunteer for St. John on a regular basis, and you'll see that our COVID service started off with us providing support for the Nightingale hospitals. The UK government put a number of temporary hospitals in place when COVID first hit in March. These were mainly conference centres and things that had been converted into quick to use hospitals, and we were able to redeploy our event first aid teams, who would have been at pop concerts and other events that obviously were cancelled, to be healthcare support teams in those hospitals, working alongside the National Health Service and the UK military. And providing a range of services, including healthcare support and ambulance discharge from those hospitals, as well as our what became quite famous, our proning teams, our teams that were able to assist with the turning of patients and providing skilled manpower for that. So that's where we are.
That's incredible. That's really incredible. And you said something about a unified vision, and oftentimes Robbie and I talk about that with organizations that want to impact recruitment and retention or motivation. And we say, what's your vision and how is it living? And they're like, what? So, it seems to me that you're really confirming the need and the power of having a unified vision and what becomes possible when you have people, involved in that.
So the purpose of St John is stated very simply, that nobody should suffer because there isn't good first aid available. That's our organisational mantra. And for COVID, one of the things we did very quickly in our first couple of days was we set up our strategic coordination group, which I was chairing, and we set a very, very simple purpose for that group, a very, very simple mission, which was to provide an effective service during the COVID-19 pandemic for the communities and our people. And we really tried to stick to doing 2 or 3 things really well, rather than trying to do 1,000 things badly. As you can imagine, as a large charity with a clinical force of 10 to 15,000 people, including educators, logistics people, ambulance crews, first aiders, healthcare professionals, all sorts of people, we were inundated with things that we were being asked to do, and it would have been very easy to get lost in a stream of really good work. But was it the work that would have the most impact? So we settled around our purpose around providing a safe service for COVID for our people and the communities we serve. We settled that into providing ambulance services, providing hospital volunteering, and they being our 2 main core offers, which allowed us to focus our people. It allowed our training teams and our logistics teams to have 2 main service lines to feed, rather than trying to chase around doing all sorts of things. Our training people are a good example. They trained over 4,000 people in a part online, part face-to-face COVID care module to make sure our people were safe, because whilst we had really experienced people, no one had ever experienced a pandemic before, and apart from our healthcare professionals, very, very few of our volunteers were used to wearing PPE. So all that stuff had to be provided in terms of education for our folks, and our training teams really rallied to that.
Just blown away by it, when you start to think what people talk about as barriers. It's like, well, you had 4,000 people to train, you did it. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like puts everything in perspective for me. I don't know. It was just really powerful to hear you talk about it.
Yeah, I think this is one of the strengths of St John as a volunteer-led organisation. So one of the questions you shared with me beforehand was around how you keep people motivated and how you make sure that people are retained in a volunteer organisation. I think one of the things we've got right in St John is that there really is something for everybody. If you want to volunteer, we've got a role for you. So if you want to be an educator, you can be an educator. If you want to be ambulance crew, you can be ambulance crew. If you want to be a first aider, you can be a first aider. If you want to work in logistics behind the scenes, you can do that. If you want to look after one of our buildings, if you want to be a building custodian, you can do that. If you want to be involved in the charitable side of things, raising money, you can do that. And And actually, a lot of our people do several of those roles at different times. So they'll spend sometimes with logistics, sometime on an ambulance, sometime being a first aider at an event, sometime being a trainer. And we've got a couple of specialist units. We've got a cycle unit that provides cycle-based advanced first aiders and healthcare professionals at events. And we've got a medical response team, a foot-based team across the country that can work in dense crowds at events where you can't drive or cycle. And all of the people in those teams do a myriad of other things as well as those specialist functions. So I think, to the point that was raised in the questions around how do you keep people motivated, I think it's about having a range of things people can do. And I think there's got to be a structure that allows people to progress. And part of our role at St John, we see very much as helping our people succeed in their outside of St John life as well. So we do a lot of work. We have cadets, so we have very young children join us from the age of 5. They're called badgers, and they learn first aid, a bit like Cub Scouts, I think. And then you transition from being a badger to being a cadet, and the cadets, when they're teenagers, come to events as cadet first aiders and get experience of doing that. And it about 60 to 70% of our cadets want to go into healthcare. That's why they join St John, not the Scouts or not the Air Cadets or not the Army Cadets. So we're just starting to work now with the National Health Service to turn our cadets into what are called NHS cadets, to try and steer kids into careers within the NHS as physiotherapists, nurses, doctors, paramedics, operating department practitioners, occupational therapists, all sorts of roles. And I think there's a learn there for the rest of the organisation about allowing people to flow through an organisation and not seeing it as a failure when somebody moves from one role in the organisation to another. There's nothing wrong with somebody saying, look, I've really enjoyed being ambulance crew for the last couple of years, but I'm going to go into logistics for a year. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think sometimes as leaders, we get a bit upset when people want to move around. And we really shouldn't, because we probably, to get where we are, we probably moved around quite a bit. So it's about remembering where you came from, I think, is a big part of it.
Yeah. And I think when you know how to grow someone, like help someone develop and grow, you're not as attached to holding on to them, because that person moves on that's what they should do, because they've grown through this position. And then, that whoever comes next, how to grow them. And I think that's one of the things sounds like you're talking about with what's the word I want? Like a sustainability plan, like people go from one position to another position to another and can move in and out of that. I think that's brilliant.
Well, especially in the volunteer world, where we might have somebody that was with us from the age of 6 or 7 years old up until they went to university. We have university units. We have units that are made up of students at university who provide medical cover at their university as well as in the local area. And then when they actually get their first job, they might not have time to volunteer for a couple of years because they're forging a career, or they might some of our people, married and have children, and having children is as we all know, is a joy, but also a busy time. And all of a sudden they haven't got time to volunteer. Well, if we want them to come back a few years later, we need them to feel that A, there's something to come back to, and B, they need to have had a good time and need to feel that them going off to look after their kids for a couple of years is okay, and so I think it's about making sure that people that go stay in touch and know that they're always welcome back. And interestingly, over the last couple of years, we've had quite a few returnees to St John, which is great. And a recent example, we in March, a lot of the airlines closed down. They furloughed all their staff. And in the UK, furloughing really wasn't a thing. We didn't really know what the word furlough meant before March. We had about 400 airline staff come to volunteer for St John as part of their furlough arrangements with their airline. And a significant number of those people have stayed. And I'm really pleased about that, because I think if they'd all just cleared off back to the airline at the end, I might not have been too convinced that they either felt that they'd had a good time or that what they were doing was valid. Most of the airline folks were deployed into the hospitals with our teams in the hospitals, but as I say, more than 10% have stayed, which I think for a group of people who were sent to us, they didn't choose to come to us, they were sent to us. I think 10% is pretty cool. I think that's pretty good.
It is. That's terrific. That's awesome. And, it speaks to sorry, Robbie, it really speaks to the culture that you've created, and it just creates a space where people come and go, but there's no like, you're wrong for leaving, but we're so grateful you're here. When when you want to come back, and it sounds like it just creates a really powerful culture.
Yeah, and I think that the other part about it is around making sure that the sort of yin to that yang is making sure that we have good standards, we have good training. It's not just about we're so pleased to have anyone. Great, thanks for coming. Yeah, don't worry, you'll be. There's lots of attainment goals our people have to get through. And I think certainly I've worked for St John for 2 years, and before that I was in the National Health Service ambulance service, and volunteering for St John, especially in our ambulance or clinical roles or our educational roles, is quite a difficult type of volunteering. It's not like volunteering at the local charity shop and manning the shop. These are demanding roles dealing with sometimes really sick people or difficult situations. So our volunteers have got to be pretty resilient, and we've got more to do to help with that, I think. But there's also something about just accepting people will want a break. People will want a break from that. These are people who have busy lives outside of volunteering. Right. And so making sure that you've got a good plan of how many people you need to provide service is a great way to do things, I think.
Richard, I saw somebody posted on Twitter last night. They maybe tagged St. John Ambulance and said how much they enjoyed being at the hub, or I forget the exact term for it, but they said they're turning their bag in for the night and somebody's going to restock it. But they were like, I think it really brings up an interesting point. What are the things that your organization does to make it easier for people to volunteer their time or to participate in the organization? Not that they should restock their drug bag, but you actually have the ability to, turn in that drug bag so somebody can inventory it for the next crew, because that person's maybe done a shift and they've got other commitments the next day.
Yeah, so I'd like to say we've got that everywhere. But that's one of the things that we've worked up. So we've got about 450 units across the country, so groups of people, and we one of the things we did at the beginning of COVID was pooled our ambulance volunteers into 32 hubs across the country. And at those hubs, we're really trying to make it as easy as possible for folks to turn up, have an ambulance that needs the minimum of checking, go out and do their shift, come back. And really what I want the crew to be responsible for is their own personal trash and the clinical waste, and tag in anything that they've managed to destroy during the shift. And as long as that's done, actually the logistics teams at the hubs have been real superstars. So again, for some of our people, they haven't been able to volunteer clinically during the pandemic because they maybe have got asthma or diabetes or another health condition, which over here we're not putting people in front of patients with. So our logistics teams have almost doubled in size, and that's been great for making sure that drug bags can be replenished, equipment on ambulances like oxygen bags, Entonox bags, airway bags, all those sort of grab bag stuff can be restocked. Rather than people having to come back after 12 hours of volunteering and then spend 2 hours sorting stuff out. So work in progress, but that's definitely this is one of the things that was always in the plan, but the pandemic has maybe allowed us to accelerate some of this stuff. And it's about making sure that people have still got access to be able to volunteer. And if they can't go out seeing patients because of COVID, they can help out in all sorts of other ways.
Such a great example. Yeah, that's great.
Outstanding. Really. There's so much we can learn from you and your organization. Thank you.
Well, it's very kind, but I think we're very lucky in that because of the history of our organisation. The modern St John ambulance, as I said, comes from the sort of mid 1800s, from the Industrial Revolution, post-industrial revolution, Britain and heavy industry. And because of that, we've got lots of generations of St John members. Lots of our members, dad was a member, mum was a member, granddad was a member, grandma was a member, and it can be traced back, several generations. And I think that does help hold people together when things get tough.
Brilliant. Well, folks, if you're just joining in, we have Richard Lee here from St. John Ambulance. Richard was awarded the Queen's Ambulance Medal at Her Majesty's birthday, I believe back in 2016 is what it says.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a day to Buckingham Palace. So the Queen's Ambulance Medal, National Health Service ambulance staff in the UK get a medal from the Queen after 20 years service.
Wow.
And then every year, no more than 12 people a year get awarded the Queen's Ambulance Medal, which is for distinguished ambulance service. And I was very lucky to be nominated for some work I did in my NHS job, looking at reducing the number of ambulance dispatches by increasing the number of people that are helped over the telephone by nurses and paramedics in the control room giving advice, and also in terms of not always sending an ambulance to every call, but sending other healthcare professionals to calls where they're more appropriate. So sending an occupational therapist and a physio with a paramedic to people who've fallen, and decreasing the number of ambulances stacking up outside of hospitals because of that. So really interesting work, pretty commonplace across the UK now in 2020. But if the most local example for you is the guys at Niagara in Canada. So Kevin Smith, the chief there, liked what we did, and a few of us from the UK worked with him, and their system's now running like that in Niagara. And, pretty smart.
That's brilliant. That's great. I mean, I think that's the goal of, at least in the US, what the ET3 program is trying to do, is trying to triage, have a medical triage line in the future, and encourage organizations to redirect that traffic that can be handled over the phone, and for those very lower priority calls. And what you're talking about, I think, just brings it to a whole nother level, just bringing various partners in, utilizing their strengths, because what we do, I think their statistic is around 25% of what we do is pick patients off the floor that typically don't need to go to hospital. And just it would be great to send, or at least send trained people that are there that can help prevent them from falling again, potentially.
Yeah, and that's another role for St John Ambulance. So outside of COVID, one of the things we do in a couple of areas of the country is we provide the response to non-injured falls patients. So if somebody dials 999 and says, somebody's fallen, they're not hurt, it's St John people that go and refer the patient back into the appropriate service for a falls follow-up and things like that. I think the days of just dispatching ambulances on lights and sirens to the next call, I joined the NHS ambulance service in '93, so before MPDS over here, and it really was just, somebody's not very well at this address, away you go, and it was like wacky races, and we got there, and then I think over the last sort of 20 years, referring people to other bits of healthcare became the norm. By the early 2000s, ambulance crews in the UK were referring sort of at least a third, if not getting on for half, the patients that call 999 to another agency. But it's really not very efficient to send an ambulance there to do that when the patient can tell you what's wrong with them when they ring up. In the UK, 5% of ambulance calls are trauma. And the other 95% are chronic medical conditions that people are suffering with, that have just overwhelmed them and got to a point where they need support. And a huge chunk of that can be safely dealt with over the telephone, and another huge chunk can be dealt with by sending the right professional. And then the other chunk can be dealt with by paramedic practitioners who can go along and do other things, including here now prescribing. So the top end of our paramedic practitioners now can write prescriptions for you, same as your family doctor can. So it's a good direction, but it's it's a sort of emerging system here. I think it'll be probably another 5 years before it's the norm everywhere.
And one of our other speakers, Tony Walker in Australia, talks about again, not doing it, having to do it all yourself, finding community partners, utilizing their strengths to serve people and give them what they need where they need it. And he's on our lineup for tomorrow. So
yeah, he's a great guy. He's a great guy. You should listen to him, folks. He's a good guy. I mean, it's been similar journey for policing over here. So UK policing is a bit different, I think, to what I see in the States. But the police in the UK now, for everything other than bank robberies or murders or things that need a high-end policing response immediately, community resolution is much more part of the landscape, really. So you're far more likely to be visited by a community support officer from the police or a local authority, a local council warden, with a lot of the problems that people contact the police around than you are to see a police car arrive with flashing lights and cops jump out. Right. It's probably quite quaint by North America standards, but it's and we're following there, because if you think about it, the bank robberies and the murders are our cardiac arrests and big traumas and patients that are in extremis and will die if something isn't done for them really quickly now. And the chronic conditions are the antisocial behaviour and the neighbour disputes and all the other things that police colleagues spend most of their time doing. So we're learning very much from the community policing model around how does an ambulance service respond to different stratification of the core volume.
It's great. We've got a vote for Kevin Smith to speak at the 2021 EMS Leadership Summit. Somebody can tag Kevin and tell him that he's been tagged.
Yeah, he's had a good teacher, Duncan, but he's doing a good job. Yeah, he's doing good, and he should. Kevin and his team. There's he's really led the way there, and there's some real innovation there. It's a good system, Niagara.
That's great. We're happy to feature you, the great work of St. John Ambulance. We want to thank you for spending the time recording that session, and maybe if there's anything you'd like to leave as kind of final comments on your part, or maybe suggestions for the current and future leaders out there that are listening in. Any advice?
So, well, it's really timely actually, because I was before I came on this call, we've just bought some new ambulances, okay, and we've done it a bit differently this time. And one of our people had sent a very nice email to our chief executive saying, what a fantastic piece of work it was. And of course, really, that's not actually the ambulances are just the byproduct. And I suppose our chief exec has just summed this email up, which is all about our new ambulances, which was starting with St. John people. So go and ask St. John people what they need, then trust the team to design it. Work with quality manufacturers and components. Take a bit of a long-term view because it might be more expensive in the short term, but what you're actually doing is creating value. And that's my chief exec's summary of 2 pages of excitement about new ambulances, which is all directed at various people along the way. But it actually started with, for the first time, us sitting down with our ambulance volunteers, about 900 of them, and saying, right, what do we do about these ambulances? What ones do we get? And deciding there wasn't something that fitted our bill, and then letting them get on with designing it. It's taken about a year. But here we are in a position where, for the first time, we seem to have an ambulance that most people are happy with, whilst they are debating the colour of it. But hey, nothing's perfect. Thanks for having me, Robin, Lisa. Thanks, everybody, and stay safe for whatever comes next in 2020. It's just a crazy time, but look after yourselves, everybody.
Absolutely. Thanks again, Richard, for being here and for all your work.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Well, wow, that was brilliant. And I love that he closed with that remark of, wow, being able to sit down with your crews, have that open line of communication, and really just, like you always say, Lisa, get curious. What do people value? Sitting down with over 900 people to gather their feedback and not just telling them what your good ideas are. And that's definitely the true sign of a leader. And
asking them, what do they need? And oh, there's nothing out there like that. Well, let's design it. Oh, what? Like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's just amazing.
It's really great. Lots of comments and feedback going back and forth about different types of responders and the Red Cross. And I know Duncan's also posted some resources as well. Folks are saying it'd be great to have first responder communities in Canada to support the way other countries have that type of support. Duncan's sharing the Niagara EMS transformation video. So check that out in the comments. It's really great. We'll have to put a link to that in maybe a resource page or something. And boy, Lisa, this has been great. This is day number 4. We had a great lineup today, and tomorrow it's looking even more exciting with our final day, day number 5. I don't know about you, but I'm ready for day 5.
You know, it's funny. We went from 3 days last year. We were like, it's not long enough. Oh my God! So we went to 5 days, and now it's like, oh my God, we have 5 days. It's just been amazing. I've been looking forward to these live conversations every day, and can't wait to see what we talk about, and it's so exciting. And I just keep getting humbled by Richard Lee from St. John's Ambulance was on our summit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Here to from the UK live.
Share with the world. It's really great. And share with the world the great work that his organization does. I mean, folks, check it out. There is still time today to watch that session. And I think there's great examples of leadership strategies and that you can take away from that presentation alone. Because he doesn't talk about him and how he's a great leader, which he absolutely is. He talks about his crews and the stories. And that's why it's a special video.
And I invite people, as you watch it, to not look for the differences, like, oh, well, they have this or they have that or they have this, because that can really dissuade you from listening for, well, what could we do? You really want to look and listen to his presentation from a place of what might be possible. Just because their system is different doesn't mean that you throw everything out or you say, oh, we can't do it. And I've heard people say things like that when you're talking about other countries and how they do this or they have this or they have this. So what? There's so much we can learn when we listen from a place of what might be possible versus why it won't work.
Yeah, all too often, I think we get stopped by our own thoughts of that hold us back from the possibilities, right?
Yeah, well, the noise in our heads is our biggest barrier always, because we forget that what's in our head is not reality. It's just weather, weather passing through, distorting reality. And if you're curious about what I'm talking about, I highly recommend you watch Dick and Bettinger or Barb Patterson or Steve Chandler or any of my work, and we can help you with that.
Yeah, that's great. Tomorrow, Lisa, we have a talk on the schedule, transforming culture. It's like eating an elephant, and you always say it's just take one bite at a time. Don't feel overwhelmed. And I think what we're giving people, like this whole conference can feel like drinking in from a fire hose, right? Or this massive elephant. Like how do we tackle this in our organization? So this talk, I think, really will leave you with one of the most powerful steps and the biggest leverage points for your organization and how to move forward.
Yeah, because I think people understand that, they want, okay, well, let's take one bite, but which bite? There's so much, where do I start? And so that's what we really lay out is where to begin. And this one shift can change everything. So I'm really excited about that being launched. It's the first time we've done that presentation. It was brand new, so definitely sign up for that one.
And it's based on an article that we put in the playbook. Again, 26-page playbook, folks. Make sure that you've at least downloaded that, if anything, out of this free conference. We put together 26 pages of resources, not just our schedule, but resources and information in that playbook. We spent a lot of time on that, so I really hope you at least take that away. And
you did an amazing job on that playbook, Robbie. Really.
Had a lot of
amazing. It's beautiful and it's valuable, and you did an amazing job.
Thank you. We got folks in the comments, Duncan, listen, collaborate, innovate, and then Dwight saying, I believe it's stop, collaborate, and listen.
Now I have that song in my head. Thank you very much, Dwight.
Thanks, Dwight. Tomorrow, we also have a roundtable discussion with 4 brilliant minds from that are currently in the British Columbia Emergency Health Services, but they've come from Australia, they've come from the UK. One's from Canada that's been over to Australia and back to Canada. We have Tim McBride, we've got Joe Acker, Leon Baranowski, who led the roundtable discussion, and Lucas Hawks-Frost talking about international paramedics and the degree requirements. How do you move from one country to the other? This is a continuation of the first conversation Leon had with Richard Armour today, actually, talking about making that transition. Primarily, they were looking at it, how do you move to Canada from these other countries and integrate into their paramedic system? And this paramedic roundtable, I mean, these four brilliant minds were just talking about so many great different topics to outline with their different backgrounds, their education, their experience. So folks, check that out for tomorrow. We had Mark Tinia from the Richmond Ambulance Authority, who is their public relations and media specialist. He got brought into the organization after 10 years as a broadcast journalist and has a shorter 20-minute workshop on a reporter's how-to guide to tell the story of EMS and of your organization. And he's got a lot of great tips in there for creating those relationships with folks in your local kind of media networks.
And I just want to say, you cannot underestimate the value of that. Like the story, because it really does tie into recruitment, retention, advocacy, like getting your public your officials on board. All of that is part of knowing what the story is, and the story that the story of EMS is whether you're trying to get public relations or funding.
Right.
So many ways. I'm telling you, it's a really, really important workshop that we have. I'm so glad we were able to get Mark to present, because you really can't underestimate the power of a good story.
We've got some comments in here. Jonathan's asking, what time will this be broadcast? Jonathan, great question. If you haven't already, sign up at emsleadershipsummit.com. You'll be able to sign up for that free pass. You'll get an email with our session and schedule information, and that's got the entire 5-day lineup on there, and you can just click over to day 5. So that will be live at 9 a.m. Eastern on tomorrow. So depending on what time zone you're in, again, you'll be able to access that session and the whole session lineup for right now for day 4, and then soon in about 12, 14, 16 hours, day 5. So great question. Sign up over at emsleadershipsummit.com. If you are interested in CME credits, we do have an all access pass. We get a lot of questions about this all access pass. You get lifetime access and unlimited access to this lineup of speakers, the 2020 EMS Leadership Summit speakers. And we have CAPC approved CME credits for those presentations. You get extra bonuses. We're putting together all the action guides for each talk and additional resources from our speakers and bonuses that we're going to include for those all access pass holders.
Absolutely. And I'm sorry I might have missed you saying this, but they're also all going to be MP3s, right?
Correct. So you'll be able to listen to the audios for on the go as well for the all access pass holders.
And then Tony Walker tomorrow, as you mentioned.
Oh my gosh, all of our speakers that I mentioned, Tony Walker was on the show. It was like the Tony Walker fan club, and I was so honored to be able to interview Tony Walker, the CEO and chief executive of Ambulance Victoria in the city of Melbourne and beyond for the whole state of Victoria. Tony is such a down-to-earth person, very humble leader, talking about his organization. And Lisa, you and I mentioned this in one of our talks about the importance of a vision and how his organization cast that vision for 5 years and really clarified what are the objectives or the outcomes that they want to see, and it's lived in their organization.
It's a beautiful visual, but it's also a terrific example of what's possible. And whether you're a large organization like they are or a small one. And I think that Richard just reiterated that point, the simple vision. They had two simple things, not that it wasn't hard, but they were simple and they were easy to know. This is what we're doing. This isn't what we're doing, right? and having everyone unite behind that vision. Look what they did in 5 days, like crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy good.
And tomorrow as well, we have Alan Batt. Alan is such a great guy from Ireland, I believe, who is in Canada working with the McNally Paramedic Research Project. And Alan is the one who recommended that we interview, and you interviewed Paige Mason. So Alan's conversations talking about how do we help women leaders in paramedicine, and the difference between mentorship and sponsorship, and how do you promote them to not necessarily in a position of authority, but just promoting them in general. What can we do to take on that banner of creating more equity and more equality in our industry?
And I, did not know the difference between mentorship and sponsorship until
I didn't either.
So it was really interesting. And then I started to see like I've had sponsors in my life. I didn't know that I would have called them mentors, but I could really see where they were promoting me and advocating for me, and making connections for me that I wouldn't have been able to make on my own. I didn't even know to make. So it's a really interesting conversation that he has. So I highly recommend it.
Tim Nowak, folks, if you don't know about Tim Nowak, he is a LinkedIn fanatic. He's always on LinkedIn. I swear he must post these thought-provoking questions every day on LinkedIn for our industry. Phenomenal leader, and he recorded not only a very artistic presentation with his slides, a very thought-provoking presentation about his insights on coming into an organization as a leader, as opposed to being in an organization and over time working your way up. He has done that before and moved to a different organization, and his insights and thoughts for our industry have been great. And last but not least, Dr. Peter Antevi, 3-time returning speaker for us. He spoke at the first EMS Leadership Summit in 2019. He spoke at our EMS Safety Forum that we recorded earlier this year. And he is back again, very busy person, providing medical direction for multiple agencies in South Florida, as well as working at the national level with other medical directors of very large systems. So Dr. P. Antevity is talking about how his organization and how as a medical director, he improved communication across organizations in the state and then nationally to share information rapidly. So he has some great strategies about how they adapted and really put a focus on protecting the personnel, the families, the communities. So really appreciate Dr. Antevi anytime he has a chance to speak.
Yes, he's a terrific speaker too. So
All
shall
right.
we just revisit just real quickly the
Absolutely, because tomorrow
booths.
Tomorrow we have
oh yeah, the Lunch and
Learn with Zoll X Series the X Advanced Series monitor that will debut in North America, and in the US in January. So it has not been officially announced yet. Their big announcement is in January, I believe. It's already been introduced in the Canadian market, in the UK, and possibly Australia. So let me just pull up the exhibitor hall. And folks can go to emsleadershipsummit.com/exhibit.
Go to number 12, Zoll booth number 12, and you will find an opportunity to sign up.
Scroll down, you can learn about the advanced series, the literature, the videos, but what more importantly, right here, you can reserve your spot for tomorrow's clinical lunch and learn for the first 100 people who register, and we are running out of space, but there is still space left. We will 100 people who register and show up for this clinical lunch and learn at 1 p.m. Eastern. Here we have different time zones listed, and you can just reserve your spot through this portal.
And you will get a $15 Grubhub voucher if you're one of the first 100. Is that right?
Yep. And we will do a lunch and learn with the clinical team over at Zoll. So it's exciting to hear from them. Other sponsors, of course, are really thankful to MediCredits. You can download this as an individual, or your organization can download this app and reach out to Neil and Matt, the founders, and you can download this app, and your whole organization can get access to clinical CME topics right from their phones. And really appreciate MediCredits for helping us with the CAPC approved CME credits for our all access pass holders.
Yes, everyone should just go download that app right now. Go do it.
Folks at Binderlift really appreciate Rick Binder, family-owned business. I believe him and his parents were in volunteer EMS and came up with this idea of how do you lift a patient safer for not only the patient, for your providers. We've talked about this before, Lisa, your most important assets. How do you protect their backs? They're offering a free field trial. So you can sign up for that free field trial. Oh, that's neat. There's even a little video there. Huh. I didn't notice that. And they will ship you one of these units. You can get 3 or 4 people around that patient and properly lift. So it's really great to have multiple lifting points and handles, especially if you work with crews that are different heights. It makes it much safer. So you can fill out this form, and they are very quick to follow up with folks, which is always appreciated.
And, again, I'm just going to bring this back to recruitment and retention, right? Yeah. Retention is a big issue. And when someone gets hurt or doesn't have the proper tools, they're far more likely to go someplace else because they don't feel cared for, and this is just one example of something that you can do. You can invest in and have your crews feel like, oh, wow, like you're worried about my back. You want to make sure that I'm here long term, right?
Yeah.
I just think we need to think about those things.
It's a great point. Thank you. Our 5-day Stress Less challenge with Suze is free. You could still sign up. You go into her booth and you can learn about what Suze is teaching with Tai Chi and sign up right here for the 5-day challenge. And you'll be able to get just 2 short videos a day on tips to help you stress less, balance more. So really appreciate Suze for putting that together for our community. The folks over at IAMED, you'll be able to access a special price on their pre-hospital ultrasound course for the month of October. So check that out, as well as their other online programs if you're interested in becoming a flight medical provider. And I think we have a question.
Yeah, we have Misty has a question.
Sure, where is she? Okay, question about eligibility for CME credits. Great question, Misty. Ask your organization. Every organization is a little bit different, and maybe they issue CME credits for agency drills. So if you give them an outline of the talks that you watched, that might be acceptable for your agency. If your organization or you require CAPC approved CME credits, so that it's accredited, proven continuing education credits, that's what we have for the all access pass holders. You'll get 15 CAPC approved CME credits. But we have to be able to verify video view watches, and that's done through our learning management system, our programs.emsleadershipacademy.com system that our all access pass holders get access to, and they get access to the whole library. So really great question. Brenda asked, what's the name of that app? MediCredits. And what I will do is I will put a direct link here in.
There you go.
There we go. So there's a direct link in there to their booth. Check them out. Forward it to anybody in your organization that might be interested in CME credits, getting it through the phone. And great.
Yeah, just again, for the all access pass holders, we actually go in and verify, how many hours you watch. There's you go to MediCredits, so it's more formal. We have, for the CAPC, we have to do that. But like Robbie said, if you can write something up about something you watch, they very well take that. So anything else, Robbie, before we?
I just want to thank everyone watching on the live stream, whether you're watching it now or you're watching the replay. I want to thank our speakers. Oh my gosh, how generous they all were to take their time. And last year, Lisa, some people thought we were kind of crazy putting together this virtual conference. Who wants to do that? our sponsors said, well, we really love to go meet people. And so we really wanted to make this information accessible to the masses, right? To get this information to every level of leadership, that from the frontline care workers, the caregivers, to the people that have been in this industry for 40 plus years. We want to make it accessible. And I really think we have been able to do that. And I appreciate your time, Lisa, and your efforts in this, for partnering with me and for making that happen.
Well, I have to thank you because it's the work we did early on for your organization, and the vision that you had to transform it that got me involved. I was very young and grew up in a fire department, but got me involved with this whole world of EMS again. So I'm thrilled to be a part of it. And I have to say this, and I really hope people don't hear it as bragging, but last year when we started the summit, we had 800 people live, and then we somehow got up to 1,500 over the course of 3 days, people sharing it, and it was pretty incredible. And this year, prior to starting, we had over 3,000 people from 24 different countries. So that's to me, just such a demonstration of how much people are hungry for this kind of access to all these masters at leadership. And I don't know, it's just amazing to me that so many people are just signing up for free because they can, and they're watching them. We can see that people are watching the videos, and they're sharing it on Facebook, and it's just moving. I'm so excited about it.
And we understand that prior to virtual events like this, folks would have to take time away from their families, their work environment, their organizations. It costs a lot of money to travel, airfare, hotels, conference fees. So that's why we really wanted to kind of democratize this information, right? Get it out to the masses and make it easily accessible from wherever you are, from your phone. And it's been an incredible journey. I want to thank everyone for watching. If you have any questions, what's that? I
want to thank Zoll again because and our other sponsors, IAMED, et cetera, because they also are the ones that make this possible. Make it possible for us to offer it for free.
Very true. All right, everyone. Remember, keep an eye in your email box for the lineup for tomorrow, and you'll be able to watch those 9 a.m. Eastern for day number 5. If you haven't watched all the sessions from day number 4, check those out. We'd love to hear your feedback. You can email us back. You can comment on social media. We love hearing your feedback, taking your questions, and we hope you've enjoyed. Take care.
Bye, everyone.